Welcome to Thursday. My name is Rudy Stankiewicz. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Talking Pools podcast, but I'm also the CEO and president of Aquatic Facility Training and Consultants. I'm a CPO instructor, an AFO instructor, as well as a consultant and a few other things. That's what I want this Thursday show to be about. I want to talk about those certification programs. I want to discuss the material that's in those programs. I'm going to call it Pool Operator Talk. If you need to renew your pool operator certification, take a look at these podcasts. View them as a refresher. They'll be fabulous for that. If you've never taken the CPO program before, the CPO certification class or the AFO certification class, take a look at these as your prep. Not looking to get your certification? Not a problem. These episodes on Pool Operator Talk are going to be super beneficial anyway. A great refresher for the pro. If you have new hires or if you are new to the pool industry, there's going to be a lot of education in here that you don't want to miss. Prep materials on my website, that's cpoclass.com. So if you're interested in flashcards, practice tests, some other video exercises, go there, check it out, cpoclass.com, hit the tab that says practice test. You'll find that information there. In a minute, we're going to dive into the program. I'll see you there. I wanted to start with just talking about the program itself initially. You don't have to be an expert to come into the course. You're not going to leave the course an expert unless you were already an expert when you came in. What makes you an expert is the years of experience out in the field. A 2-day class is not going to do it. So don't put that stress on yourself, but definitely don't leave the course thinking that you know everything either, because you don't. So don't be afraid to ask for help. I like to make myself available to my certification students in either class going forward, should any questions ever arise, because I don't think 2 days and see you later is enough to help somebody get started in their career, whether you're working for somebody or operating your own company. It's just not. You will run into things that you haven't seen before. You will forget things that you heard in class. I let everybody know right then and there. Hit me up with an email. Best way to get me, rudy@cpoclass.com. Easy peasy. Send me an email. If there's some way that I can help you, I will happily do that. Emails work fantastic because you can attach a picture so I can see what you see. And that can also benefit both of us and help me diagnose whatever you got going on a little bit quicker if I can help you out. I've also done some FaceTime tours of pools for my CPO students after the fact. So we like to stick around. You know, we look at this as a relationship, not one and done. And I think that's important, because I think coming into a new industry, or even if you've been in the industry for a long, long time, a second set of eyes doesn't hurt. And we like to be that for you. Now, the program itself does go through everything, maintaining a commercial or a public pool. The same things can be applied to a residential pool. There is no reason why you should not apply this education to a residential pool, because a swimming pool is a swimming pool. The only difference between a residential pool and a commercial pool is the size of the pool, the amount of people that swim in it, and of course the equipment. And we'll talk about that stuff too, maybe not in this episode right off the bat, but in a future episode. First things first, I like to start with the end in mind. So ultimately, the second day of this course, the second half of the second day of this course, there's going to be a test. Sometimes tests can cause some anxiety for folks. I hope to quell that a little bit, because there's really nothing to be anxious about. This test that you're going to take, it's 50 questions long, all multiple choice, A, B, C, or D. Even the math, A, B, C, or D. It is an open book test. You can use the book. You can use any handouts your instructor gives to you. You can use any notes that you take. I like to take the notes in the margins in the book. That way I have them forever. If I take notes on a pad of paper, I'm surely going to lose those at some point in time. And yes, you know what? I want them available for this test, but it would be nice to have them going forward. So if I write them in the margins in the book, that is absolutely the best way to ensure that I will still have that stuff I wrote down, something I picked up from class that I thought was interesting, going into the future. So you're allowed to use that. The book, handouts, notes. You're allowed to use a calculator. Make sure you bring one of those. Not a bad idea to bring a highlighter and some Post-it flags so you can post pages so things are easy to find. So 50 questions, 3 hours to take the test. That's 10 less questions than you had if you took the class 5-6 years ago. It's also 30 minutes longer now because it used to be 2.5 hours. Now you have the 3 hours to take the test. Pretty cool. So you get to spend more time with each question than the way the course used to be set up. On this 50-question test, you have to get 37 questions correct in order to meet the requirements of the program. 37 questions, which means you can get 13 wrong, or only 10 questions that involve any type of math whatsoever. Just 10. That's it. Are you following me here? So if you have to get 37 right, that means you can get 13 wrong. There's only 10 math. That means you could completely blow every single math question and still do okay. It's not a good plan, but it can be done. If you can find everything else you need in the book, 40 questions in the book, and get the right answer for those, you could theoretically completely blow every single math question and do okay. That's not what we want. I want you to do well on the math. The math is super important in the pool industry, so I'm not trying to minimize that either. Everything we do, everything you do going forward is going to involve math. This course itself, as you go through it, it's going to seem entirely heavy math. That's why I like to head it off this way first and let you know, hey, there's only 10 math questions, and if you can find everything else in the book, don't stress the math. The goal is the more you go forward in your career and you run into these different things, you refer back to book, then you commit those things to memory. But you're going to need it for calculating bather load, gallons, dosing, equipment sizing, you name it. It's just going to be a lot of math involved in this career for you, but don't stress it because you'll be able to go back to the book or the handouts your instructor gave you, whichever. Like I said, this is why it's good to write everything down in the book. It's easy to find the book, pieces of paper, not so much, but you can go back to the book. The formulas will be there. All you have to do is identify the correct formula and it'll click. Hey, you know what? Yeah, we went over that in class. I know it's in the book. Maybe you don't remember it right off the top of your head, but you know it's there and you know that you can find it. So that's super important. So 50 questions, 3 hours to take the test. Only 10 questions that are math, and you don't need to stress them. Now, let's talk about the books, okay? Make sure that you find the index in the book. I know page 295 in the CPO handbook is the index. That's the most important page in the book. I do not remember off the top of my head which page the index is in the AFO book, but it does have one and it's great index. Mark those pages in some way, shape, or form so that they're easy to find. If you have to look up the answer to 40 questions in a book, it's important to know where the index is. Now, how much you learn and how much you retain from these classes that you attend is heavily instructor driven. It depends on how the course is taught. It depends upon the skill set of that instructor. I personally, the big thing for me is not that piece of paper with the certificate on it. That's not the most important thing for me. Although I do want you to get it, don't get me wrong. The most important thing to me is that you learn and that you still remember that stuff 6 months later. So I try to set my classes up, and I think I do a pretty good job for the purpose of retention. I do a lot of hands-on. I do a lot of visual. I do a lot of demonstrations. Not everybody does, and that's fine. The way I look at it is you do you. But my goal coming into this is I decided I wanted to be the teacher I always wanted to have. So that's the way that I teach. Now, getting back to this book, looking at the index, sometimes you have to look for variations of what you're searching for. For example, we know if somebody poops in the pool, a solid stool, the big threat there is Giardia. That's the thing that you can get from a human solid stool that is the hardest to kill. It's a protozoa. So when somebody poops in the pool, first thing you do, everybody out of the water. Get out of the pool. Remember Roy Scheider in the movie Jaws on the beach with the bullhorn? Get out of the pool. Or get out of the water, whatever. Anyway, get everybody out of the pool, get them off the deck, get them out of the gated area, and lock that gate. If you leave them milling about the pool area, they're definitely going to try to get back into the water. I've seen it a million times. Well, it was floating over there, so can I swim over there? No. It's disgusting. The next thing you do, you got to scoop the poop. And when you scoop it out, what do you do with it? You fling it over the fence into the neighbor's yard because you don't like them? No, you can't do that. You need to dispose of it in a means in accordance to the local sanitation department. They're going to tell you to either flush it or bag it and toss it in a waste pail. Same as if you were picking up after your dog, walking your dog. You got to pick the poop up, bag it, throw it in the garbage, or flush it. It's just poop. Okay, so with a solid stool, the next step, we throw our poop scooping equipment into the pool because our equipment has to go through the same process that the water goes through in order to sanitize it correctly. Then we raise our chlorine level up to 2 parts per million, and you hold it there for 25 minutes. I want my pH to be 7.5 or lower. The reason I want my pH at 7.5 or lower is because chlorine's effectiveness is pH dependent. The lower the pH, the more effective my chlorine is. At 7.5, 50% effective. At 7.2, it's 66% effective, and it actually gets more effective from there. So when I say 7.5 or lower, essentially what I'm telling you is I want my chlorine to be 50% effective or better. The name of the chemical that we use to test pH? Phenol red. Phenol red. It's easy to remember because it starts with pH. It's spelled Phenol, and it's red. Phenol red. And what sound does pH make? Right? Okay. So after 25 minutes, what do? Let them swim. Diarrhea. Sometimes it's runny. The beginning steps are pretty much the same. Close the pool, get the people out of the water, get them off the gate, out of the deck area, lock the gates, scoop what you can. You got to scoop the chunks. I had one student call it chasing the corn. But you got to scoop out what you can. And again, we dispose of it in accordance with the local sanitation department, where you're going to either flush it or bag it and toss it in a waste pail. The dumpster, the trash bin, whatever. Following that, poop scooping equipment goes back into the pool. Now we're going to raise our chlorine level up to 20 parts per million. 20 parts per million. How do you know that you got there? How do you know that you successfully obtained a chlorine level of 20 parts per million? I know you got to test it, right? But the test kit you are using does not likely go up to 20 parts per million. So that drop test that you're using, or if you're using test strips, keep in mind, you're not allowed to use test strips in a commercial pool anywhere in the country that has a public pool code. But that drop test can only test up to 10 parts per million of chlorine. Above that, it'll bleach out. So if you're using a drop test and trying to determine whether or not you have 20 parts per million of chlorine because you're trying to treat a diarrhea accident in a swimming pool, you're only guessing, and now you're playing games with people's health, and we don't do that. Because you got to keep in mind, as you go through this program or as you listen to me on Thursdays, you'll see that lives are literally at stake in what we do. So we don't want to fudge. In order to test a chlorine level of 20 parts per million, you're going to need to obtain an FAS, it's Foxtrot Alpha Sierra, FAS DPD means of testing chlorine. You don't have to get a whole new kit. If you can get a test kit that actually comes with that FAS DPD method of testing chlorine. That's the powders in there where you count the drops. That's a titration test. Counting the drops is a titration test. The one where you hold up the test block to match the colors, that's called colorimetric, that method. But this is titration. And like I said, it'll go up to 20 parts per million, which is what we need because that's what we got to drive the chlorine level up to. There's this thing known as a CT value, which is chlorine multiplied by time. It works out to 10.5 days if you had a chlorine level of 1 part per million. That's how long it would last in the water if somebody had a diarrhea accident at a facility that only maintained their chlorine level at 1 and nobody noticed it. 10.5 days. Anybody who gets water in their mouth and swallows it is at risk of contracting cryptosporidium. That's how this is transmitted. Fecal to oral route is what they call it. I like to say don't drink the butt water because that's what a swimming pool is. People stick their asses in there all day long. So guess what? Don't drink the butt water. So make sure that you have the correct test kit. I also want my pH to be at 7.5 or lower. And again, as we discussed, the name of the chemical we use to test pH is called phenol red. Again, starts with pH. We're going to hold our chlorine level at 20 parts per million for 12.75 hours. What do we need to do? Well, we had diarrhea in the pool. We scooped out what we could. It must have went somewhere. We need to clean the filters to waste. So you need to either backwash or clean or hose off or however you're cleaning your filters. You need to clean them thoroughly and to waste. After we've done that, our chlorine level has been up at 20 parts per million. We need to bring it down to a swimmable level. And what the acceptable range for an outdoor pool is 1 part per million to 10 parts per million. So we need to bring it down to at least 10 parts per million. The name of the chemical that we use to lower chlorine is called sodium thiosulfate. That's the same chemical that's in reagent R0007 in that drop test. That's the one with the first one with the green cap for the total alkalinity test, the chlorine neutralizer. Sodium thiosulfate, they make that available in a large quantity in a granule that you could add directly to the swimming pool to lower the chlorine level. Do not overdo it. Make sure you dose correctly, which means you need to know exactly where your chlorine level is. If you add too much sodium thiosulfate to the water, you're going to create one hell of a chlorine demand that could take a while to get used up. The sodium thiosulfate, it tends to linger until it's used up before you can maintain a good chlorine level again. So make sure that we don't overdose. Now that we've lowered the chlorine level, we can let them back in the pool again. Except for the little bastard that shit in the pool. That kid deserves to be punished. So like I said, I like to come up with different things to help my students remember what we went through to increase retention, and this is no exception. So for this fecal incident response procedure that we just went through, I decided the best way to help you guys remember is if I was to present it as a poem. So don't grade it too harshly. I did this with love in my heart. I did it for you. I call it, What Do You Do If It's Poo? You ready? If it's poo, it's 2. If it's runny, it's 20. What do you think? Right? So if it's poo, it's 2 parts per million, pH is 7.5 or lower, hold it for 25 minutes. If it's diarrhea, 20 parts per million, right? If it's runny, it's 20 parts per million, pH is 7.5 or lower, and we're going to hold that for 12.75 hours. If you're a pool service company, this test kit is worth a lot of money to you, this $30 test kit. Check out this scenario, right? Hotel pool, Saturday. Maybe it's a busy Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. Why not? Let's call it that. Busy Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. Somebody has a diarrhea accident in the pool at the hotel. They shut the pool down. The guests start complaining. They're lining up at the counter in the lobby, demanding a refund, demanding free rooms. And they're giving them to them because they want to keep their customers happy. There's even going to be people in that line that had no intention whatsoever of getting into those pools, waiting in line to get that discount. The engineer picks up the phone, calls their regular pool service company. They don't answer. He leaves a message. How long do you think he gives them to return the call before he starts calling other pool service companies that he pulled up in his search engine? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. The engineer's desperate. He goes to his computer, he goes into a search engine, he searches pool service companies in my area and gets the list that comes up. He starts calling everybody on the list. He's not even leaving messages at this point. He's just waiting for somebody to pick up the phone. Call after call after call. Finally, he gets to you and you answer. And he asks you if you're able to handle this. If you do not own an FASDPD means of testing chlorine, you have to say no. But if you do, you can say yes. This sounds like an expensive job, right? Because they did say 12.75 hours. That's a long time. And they're going to pay it because they're stuck. Now, they might not fire their regular pool service company that weekend, but they just got really, really close to the edge. And the next time they screw up, they're out. And don't you think that they're going to remember the person that came out and saved them? They're going to call you. Now, check this out. This hotel also happens to be part of a management company. They have 10 other properties within 15 miles of that location. The chief engineer goes to the regional meeting. Everybody's talking. All the other engineers, everybody in their cliques start talking about, oh, my swimming pool is such a pain in the ass. The water's green, or there's stuff on the walls. There's a scum line buildup. I don't even know when my pool service company is there. They're not doing what I want them to do. Don't you think that guy is going to recommend you if you've been doing a great job at his facility? He will. And you might pick up more out of that management company. Like I said, 10 other properties within 15 miles. You might pick them all up. How much of a boost in business would that be because you owned a $30 test kit? Don't think that scenario could happen? An incident I had with one facility from a management company resulted in me picking up 30 more properties from that management company within 12 months when I had my service company. So those things can definitely happen. It happened to me because I answered the phone and I had the right equipment. Okay, so you're not a pool service company. You work at the facility. You're on-site staff. That test kit is still worth a lot of money to you. Think about that line at the counter. You know they're asking for discounts. You know they're getting free rooms. Buy the FASDPD test kit now. This way you have it when you need it. You know people only poop in the pool on weekends. That's a fact. You go down to your pool store, guess what? They don't have this FAS, Foxtrot Alpha Sierra, FASDPD test kit in stock. Now what? They have to order it Monday. They place the order. That means the earliest they're going to get it is Tuesday. You can't start this treatment until you can confirm that you have a chlorine level of 20 parts per million. You're adding on time, not just hours, but days. Even if you went to Amazon, which we should always shop local, but if you did go to Amazon, use Amazon Prime, that's still 2 days, and then you have no idea how old the test solutions are that you're getting. Go to your pool store now. Order the FASDPD test kit. Bring it back to your facility. Put it on a shelf. In one of those, in case of emergency, break glass type of scenario, somebody's butt exploded in the pool and the entire thing turned brown. So now you can start this process right away and your pool's only going to be closed that 12.75 hours instead of having to wait for a test kit to show up. Go to your index in the CPO book. This is just for the CPO book right at this moment, and look up FASDPD. It's not there. Okay, fine. FASDPD, it's not there. Let's go to DPD, see if we can find it there. Look for a variation of the word. Still no? Okay, we know it's a question, forgive my noise here. We know it's a question about water testing, right? The FASDPD test kit. So grab your book, flip through the pages, And I want you to get to the first page of the chemical testing section. So that's chapter 8, and we're on page 87, actually. So we know it's got to be in here somewhere, right? It's got to be in here somewhere. I do not want you to read the chapter. 3 hours is not enough time to read this book while you're taking that test. So what I do want you to look at is look at the tools they gave you. You're going to see that every section within the page has different color, enlarged font, or bold print. All I want you to do is read those things. So if we flip through just reading, you'll see test methods, calorimetry. You get to page 94, and there it is, boom. Right there on page 94, FAS DPD titration testing. Everything we need to know about this test kit is going to be in this section here. Was that hard? That's on the chance that something's not in the index that you need. Use the tools in the book. Use the enlarged font, use the bold print to find what you need. Do not get stuck on any single word. So that's a basic rundown of how to go through this book and a little bit about the test and what you can expect during the class. And again, as you go through the class, it is going to seem like it is extremely heavy math, but have no fear. At the end, when you take the test, you're looking at only 10 math questions that you don't even have to get correct as long as you find everything else in the book. And you can use an index. It tells you what page to go to. All you have to do is do that. If you hear things that your instructor says during the course of the program, highlight it if you think it's going to be important or if you find it super interesting. Either way, that's going to be beneficial to you going forward. Can you learn a lot in the CPO class or the AFO class? Yes, you can. It's dependent upon you and your instructor. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today until next Thursday. But in the meantime, if you like the show, click subscribe. Check out some of our other shows. Tuesdays, we have Tuesdays with Tim and Kelly. They talk about the business end of swimming pool service business. Wednesdays, we have Hump Days with Heather. She talks about the business end of pool builds. Friday, myself and my co-host, Andrea Nanini, the Talking Pools podcast, we talk about the down and dirty pool side. That's where things get a little edgy. We've been compared more to a morning radio show than a podcast, but hey, you know what? Jam-packed full of great information. Until next Thursday, if you want to get a little bit more practice under your belt, like I said, on my website, cpoclass.com, I have a practice test page. Just find the tab, click on it, pull up that practice test page. You'll find flashcards, a practice test. There's CDC information. There's some videos you can take a look at. A lot of great stuff there. And if you are interested in taking one of my classes, on that same website, cpoclass.com, find the CPO Certification tab, click on that. It'll pull up my schedule for both in-person and virtual classes. If you want to attend an in-person class, I would love to have you. If you want to attend it virtual, the same. You can take one of my classes from anywhere in the world due to that format. Or if you want to fly in, or if you're local, definitely come to one of my in-person classes. I would love to see you either way. Until next Thursday, be safe, be good.